Is MS-DOS 6.22 the best operating system ever made? I love this series because I get to ask ridiculous questions like, is MS-DOS 6.22 the best operating system ever made? And here's the thing that makes me smile the most about asking such an on-the-face ridiculous question is that it might be. We've already covered Windows 3.1.1, Windows for Workgroups. We've covered IBM's OS2 Warp 4.0, and we covered Macintosh System Software 6.0.8. And right now, the reigning champion is Windows 3.1.1, Windows for Workgroups. I believe it has 35 points, 34 points, something like that. There's a little ticker above my head. It'll come around and show us momentarily. So we did Windows 3.1.1, and I decided, I made a conscious decision. When I reviewed Windows 3.1.1, I separated out DOS from Windows. You'll notice as I was talking about Windows, I really didn't go into here's how it utilizes DOS and here's what you can do in DOS. I just ignored all of that because in my mind, DOS and Windows are really, really just totally separate things, because you could run Windows on top of MS-DOS, PC-DOS, DR-DOS. Though if you did run it on certain versions of Windows, on certain versions of DR-DOS, it popped up little error messages. It still ran fine, but it was like a warning. It was like, you are about to die. You are running not on Microsoft DOS. And Microsoft got in trouble for that. It was hilarity at the time. Look it up. It's fantastic. But I really consider them separate. Earliest versions of Windows 1.0, Windows 2.0, were really DOS-centric. They had their own APIs, like their own Windows APIs and Windows user interface controls and buttons in Windows and whole things and lots of applications. Not lots and lots, but many applications were written for Windows like 2.0. But the focus was MS-DOS, like the conceptual focus of like Windows 1.0 with the DOS executive and all that sort of thing. It was very focused on DOS. Windows 3.0 changed that. Microsoft really tilted that and made the focus Windows, right? Once you got into Windows, you don't necessarily leave Windows. Yes, it runs MS-DOS in a window or full screen. Yes, you can exit out of Windows and you're in DOS now, but you could live in Windows and never leave it. And that was kind of the whole point with 3.0 and onward of Windows. So I thought, you know what, let's separate these out. Let's not confuse things. When I talk about DOS, it's just about DOS, not the various incarnations of Windows or GEM or other operating environments you can run on top of DOS that really are just using DOS as a kernel plus a few little utilities to make it a little easier. But let's review DOS separately. And when I decided what version of DOS do I start with on this, I simply asked Twitter. I put up a Twitter poll of 4 options. Which version of MS-DOS is the best? And overwhelmingly, 6.22 was chosen. And so let's do this. 6.22, arguably, check that. Whoops, I got to actually type that in the right window here. Version 6.22. There we go. If you type VER in DOS, by the way, you get the version of DOS that you're currently running. Just like if you type MEM in DOS, you get the amount of memory available and in use currently. Man, look at that. Look at that. 578 kilobytes free under the 640K mark. Because 640K, as everybody knows, ought to be enough for anybody. Let's do a quick dir to get the directory. No, not ls, dir. If you want to get dir and you make it like, instead of seeing it in a list view with all the details of all the files, but you want to see it just tons of file names all grouped together, do a /w, and it kind of does it that way. So if you have tons of files here, let's go into the DOS directory. See dir. Oh my gosh, too many files. dir/w. It's still too many files. dir/w/p /w makes it take up the whole width /p paginates. Oh, press any key for more. Fantastic. Okay, let's go back down here. So MS-DOS 6.22. By the time this came out for me, I mean, sure, I ran it because I ran everything back then. But by the time this came out for me, I really moved on from the DOSes. For me, the the not the high point of DOS, but the highest point of me using DOS was more around the DOS 5 era. Otherwise, I used more like PC DOS and OS2 and those sorts of things. But DOS is a really great system in and of itself. The amount of games available for DOS alone should win it many awards. It's why operating systems like FreeDOS exist, just to keep that legacy going and to keep that compatibility going. And we will review FreeDOS in this collection as well. So let's just kind of look around. I loaded a few applications on here because by default DOS doesn't come with much, and that is kind of nice. Like there's a file editor. This is the MS-DOS editor, which I'm going to be honest here. Let's hit escape because I just launched it. But this is probably the best text editor ever made, and I like it a great deal. It's simple, it's straightforward. I really am a sucker for these text-based user interfaces, especially when they're designed so well. They're so simple to use. It's just easy. I mean, there's really not that much difference between this and modern text editors, except this is done with all text, all characters, all ASCII across the screen, and it's lightning insane-o-rama fast, even on kind of pokey old hardware. Run this on a 386 SX16, and it screams. It boots fast, it launches quickly, applications spring to life like nobody's business, and that's because it's not doing much. I mean, let's look at memory again, MEM. When we just recently reviewed Macintosh System Software 6.0.8, and we looked at the About Macintosh window, which shows you how much memory each part of the system or each application is using. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is only using like 300K over here. That's like for a whole desktop, right? Look at what is currently in use right now. Oh my heavens. The total executable program size block, which is everything under that 640K line, or really 639. What's in use? 61K. Yeah. This operating system does not, I have a total of 32 megs in this virtual machine that I'm using to capture this on right now. And that's obscene almost. I mean, it's great, but very, very few applications or games are going to take advantage of that full 32 megabytes of RAM. They just aren't. I mean, why not? I'll throw it at it, because what's 32 megs in a virtual machine nowadays? I mean, you can't even get most operating systems booted on, twice that or 3 times that. Most operating systems are struggling in pain with 10 times that, and you don't even need any of that. 640K, that ought to be enough for anybody. That's totally fine. And that is amazing to me. And it's because it's simple. There's just not much here. I mean, you go into the DOS folder, the DOS directory, and look at all these things. Let's look at just the executables. dir star.exe. Let's do dir. That's right. Up and down. There we go. Right. If I hit the right button, that'll work. Dir star.exe. So up and down doesn't page back and forth like it would on a lot of Linux shells or Unixy shells. But if you hit the right arrow key, it'll start retyping letter by letter as you hit the arrow key, the recent things that you typed. So /W. There we go. So these are the things it comes with. So it comes with a copy of Qbasic. This is really simple. It's a nice little basic dialect, but you can create things with it. I'm going to show you some other stuff related to that here shortly. But you can actually make executables with it. It's just an interpreter. And otherwise, you've got, is Edlin even on here? Edlin, the old MS-DOS editor, isn't even on here, but Edit is fantastic. I already showed you that, but it's wonderful. All right, let's go back down here. Because DOS comes with such little stuff, just because it's a trip down memory lane, let's look at my config.sys. All right, there's my mouse driver, my high memory driver. Okay, let's edit my autoexec.bat. For those of you who don't know, a config.sys is your system configuration. So it loads up some things and sets some environment variables when the system boots. And autoexec.bat is a batch file, which is sort of like a scripting language, a very high-level scripting language. The Batch scripting language is similar to Bash, except totally different. But the autoexec.bat is launched when the system boots. So as DOS boots up, kicks off your config.sys and launches your autoexec.bat, which is great because a lot of times you can use that to launch Windows or your own DOS-based batch files. In fact, I did that for my daughter on her machine, except I used DOSBox or FreeDOS for various things, and I would give her a simple text-based DOS batch file menu where she could play Mixed Up Mother Goose and various other games by hitting the right letter on the keyboard. Anyway, so there's our path variable, and the path variable just basically says the system needs to remember this directory, everything that's in that directory, it should be accessible to you wherever you are. So this is my path. I type path, and that shows me what my path variable is. You'll notice that the Word folder is in my variable, which means that I can simply type Word because Word.exe is in that folder, hit enter, and ta-da, I'm in Microsoft Word. Now, if I'm from Microsoft Word, I can save as a Word file, a text file, a rich text file. It's freaking fantastic. This is, by the way, this is Word for DOS 5.5a. I want to say maybe 5.5a. It's actually quite nice. 5.5a has this weird thing in it. If you've never played, I think just 5.0 has it too, where you can be in that nice standard DOS character-based mode, text mode, and type along. But you can also switch it over if you have a compatible video card, like a nice EGA card or something like that. You could switch it over to show multiple, far more columns and rows, because it actually goes into a video graphics mode instead of a text-based line, rows and columns mode. But it keeps the UI the same, so it still looks text-based. It looks exactly the same. Everything just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's very, very cool. But check this out. This is VB for DOS. A lot of people don't realize this, but Visual Basic, there was one version made for DOS, and this is what it looks like. This is totally not a joke. So let's do let's file, let's add a new form. Let's just call it whatever, and check this out. This is a visual designer. Let's do a command button here. This is a command button, and I don't know, let's put a checkbox over here. Oh, I have to draw it. That's right. Boop, 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 like that. All right. So now I did a checkbox. All right. Let's save it. And then let's, I forgot. How do you switch back over? Options. Oh, that's right. I got to go back to the code view, exit program environment. Yes. Edit and active, and then run. Check this out. Boom. I now have just made in DOS in text mode a ridiculous little application. It's just like Visual Basic for desktop PCs and whatnot, except it does DOS-based stuff. It's all ASCII. It's just phenomenal that this exists. Microsoft abandoned it immediately. Like they were just done. They're like, forget this. But they made it. Microsoft every now and then comes out with the wildest, wackiest stuff that makes you smile. Because, if you ever had a Commodore 64, your operating system was from Microsoft. If you ever had an old Apple II, the Apple II Basic, that was Microsoft. The Trash 80, that was Microsoft. Microsoft made this hardware card. I'm now diverging quite ridiculously. They made this hardware card for the Apple II that added CPM support. So Digital Research CPM could run on this little, I believe it was a little Z80 card. It was a Z80 hardware card that stuck inside of an Apple II, and you could run CPM from Digital Research on it, and the card was made by Microsoft. It was baffling that Microsoft made that. It was a different time, I tell you. I've also got, you'll notice WordPerfect 5.1 is in here. I'm not going to show that to you right now because I'm going to do a whole thing about WordPerfect 5.1 later. It's a different sort of show. Now, this system is great. I don't understand why it remains closed source. I know I harp on that a bit, but I really don't understand what Microsoft gets out of DOS 6.2.2 not being open. Perhaps it's that there's some licensed code in there and they just simply can't because of lawyers. But if that's the case, that means that the person that they've licensed that code from also doesn't want that code to be public. And at this point, why would anyone care? It seems like the universe deserves that information. And this system was wildly popular. DOS 6.2.2, so many games, so many applications, so many businesses based around this. This had a massive, massive influence. I mean, arguably some of the earlier versions of DOS might have had more influence than this version in that they influenced more other systems, because DOS 6.2.2 was really the end of its life. But man, it was just vitally important for the industry and as a whole, and for the economy. Whole just massive game companies that are huge today wouldn't have existed if DOS gaming wasn't a thing, at least in theory. So it's pretty phenomenal. It's a pretty phenomenal system, and it's also a really fun system to dink with. You can do whatever you want. You can just sit here and say, I'm going to type del tree. Del tree, by the way, will delete a tree. A tree being one directory and everything below that directory. So I could right now, delete my DOS directory. See that command.com? Command.com, I'm going to show you something here. Command.com, I run it. I'm now running command.com. That's my command interpreter, like my bash shell on a Unix-based system. And it shows me the version because it launched, and that's the version that's running. Yep, so that's still the version that's running, right? Now, I could do all of that. I can screw up my system, which means I am running as root, essentially, right? It's not like other systems that are multi-user and have protections in place. No. This is the Wild West, son. You run as root or nothing. There's no multiple users here. There's no multitasking here. Here's how much RAM you've got, shown in a nice ASCII table. You don't like it? Tough. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I love that there's such an amazing wealth of stuff available for DOS. And it's just phenomenal. So what I wanted to do is I want to show you exactly what score I gave this here. I give it a 36, which means DOS 6.2.2 is currently crowned the best operating system ever up to this point, and up to this point in the series, not at this point in time. And here's how that broke down. I know this is going to seem crazy to some of you, and others of you are nodding along going, yeah, man, you got it right. Enjoyability, I give this a 9 out of 10. There's no graphical interface. Edit.exe and Qbasic and a few other things that ship with the system do have a text-based user interface, but there's no, by default, no GUI, right? You want a GUI, you make your GUI, or you go buy a Windowsy thing, or just launch your game. You want your computer to do something? Type it. You own your computer when you're running DOS. And I need to be very careful about how I say that, because what I'm talking about here isn't that we have access to the source code, because we don't, and we should, and that's an oversight clearly on Microsoft's part, right? But you can screw it up so profoundly if you want to, and if you do, it is so crazy easy to fix. Delete your DOS directory. Stick in the floppy you installed it on and copy A drive /DOS to C drive /DOS. Boom. Done. You just completely fixed your system. It's awesome. It's absolutely phenomenal. And you can use the format command, which formats a drive, which is like in a Macintosh initializing a drive and whatnot. Write the DOS, the FAT file system, onto a floppy or a hard disk or anything. Give it a... Oops, I started typing in there. I'm in the wrong screen. But give it a /S, Boom, it copies the base system, makes that drive bootable, and throws command com on there. Now it's going to leave most of the rest of all of DOS up on your actual hard drive you have installed, but that means that you can make any floppy, any hard drive a bootable system. That means there's a complete operating system there. Is it Crazy Psycho Limited? Yeah, but it's a bootable floppy. That's awesome. So if you ever were like, man, this game needs like another 25K of RAM, I'm going to make a boot disk just for this game. And then as you format /s, boom, copy over just what I need. Boom, just my mouse driver, maybe my Sound Blaster environment variables, and that's it. And then I'll boot off of that floppy and then play my game. You could do that with DOS. And it was encouraged. It was part of the functionality. Could you imagine in Windows or Mac if you were like, I want to format this flash drive. Oh, by the way, format it as a system drive. Copy over the operating system so I can just stick a flash drive in and boot it off of that flash drive. That'd be great. Mac OS 10. I mean, no, Apple and Microsoft would never do that nowadays, and it's awesome. This is an awesome feature that's just tons of fun. The fact that I can screw it up so bad makes me enjoy it. The fact that it's entirely text-driven and so lightweight and so instantaneous in its responsiveness makes me enjoy it more. And the polish is high, not crazy high. There are some issues. I give it a 7 out of 10 on polish because while it's text only, they did a phenomenal job of providing a huge amount of possibilities. They made it so this is a system that you could build other things on top of, that you could use as the foundation for your computing environment by putting whatever other applications you wanted on there. And I like that. And what is there tends to be well polished, like edits. The DOS edit command is profoundly well designed. And there's just not a lot inside DOS in terms of the user interface. So you just have to like that. And most of the commands, CD, dir, mem, clear screen is CLS. It's all just so short. It's easy to type. Type it quickly. It's delightful. It's well thought out in that regard. By this point in DOS's history, they had really worked out the kinks and added in the features people wanted to have. Which brings us to our Immortality, which I give it a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10, which is phenomenal. This is an operating system that has existed for a long time and will be runnable for a very long time. The only reason I have not given it a 10 out of 10 is because it's closed source and only really runs on one architecture type. If it ran on 5 or 6 different architecture types, or if it had been open source so it can be ported around and updated to run on new hardware, I would have given it a 10 out of 10, clearly. But it does have some limitations. Luckily, those limitations are simple. Because let's be honest, who isn't going to be able to run some form of let's say a 16 megahertz 386 emulator or something that regard, some sort of x86, 1632-bit CPU emulator that can handle 640K RAM. I mean, there's emulators written in JavaScript that can handle that at a reasonable speed. And so it's very immortal. For importance, and I think this is where DOS 622 really dominates so far, is I give it a 10 out of 10. So many people had this installed. So many applications and so many games set this as the standard. And I think when it comes to commercially shipped DOS operating systems, this was it. This was the pinnacle. I think that DR-DOS... DR-DOS could have gotten there, and we'll kind of go into that because I'm gonna be doing a version of DR-DOS later on in this series. And DR-DOS, for the importance standpoint, could have gotten there, but gosh, I tell you what, just nobody by that point in digital research's history was using DR-DOS. I mean, it just wasn't getting used. And so the widespread nature of MS-DOS 622, the sheer huge library of games and applications available, the fact that it ran so well on such a wide array of the PCs available on the market at the time, and even nowadays, is just amazing. In importance, I got to give it a 10 out of 10. For the wild card, I just give it a 1. I give it 1 point for the wild card because the things about MS-DOS, specifically 622, that I love are already represented in the enjoyability, the polish, the immortality, and the importance, right? Those are already represented in the other scores. I would have given it more in the wild card because I like DOS. I just do. I like all DOSes. I like CPMs. I like all of them. That whole subgenre of operating systems I absolutely adore, and I think they're just phenomenal. I like the simplicity of it. I like simplicity and massive power and massive speed. I like those things. However, I do give it a 1 out of 10. And the reason I give it an extra wild card point is thus. Games. And I know I've mentioned this, but technically games really isn't specifically all of those. But the sheer number of games, oh my gosh, from SimCity to Civilization 1 and Descent and Doom and Wolfenstein and Commander Keen and Goodbye Galaxy. I mean, the whole lot of it. There's so many great games, just phenomenal. The Ultima series, though a lot of the Ultimas were available on a lot of other platforms as well. Don't get me wrong. Some contemporaries to DOS, like the Amigas and whatnot, were undeniably, in many ways, superior to similar era DOS machines in the games department. But man, was DOS great for games. Man, was it great. So it gets a point. It gets an extra point for that, just for being so great for games, which brings us to 36 points out of 50. MS-DOS 622 is the new champion, the best operating system ever, the best specific release ever. You can't go wrong with that. Holy smokes. I'm going to be honest. When I was scoring DOS, part of me was like, oh, for the love of Pete, do not let MS-DOS 622 win right now. Like, I don't even want it to be winning at all. Because, but the other part of me was like, oh man, someone's got to unseat Windows 3.1.1. So please, DOS, please unseat Windows 3.1.1. So I wanted it to win, but I didn't want it to win. I have a lot of mixed emotions going on right now. Luckily, we're very early in this game, and we're going to see where it's going to go. Brought to you in part by Linode. If you go to linode.com/Lunduke, not backslash like in DOS, // like in Unix, and what you use on the www. Linode makes great servers, great virtual private servers that you can set up over there, running a huge array of different Linux distributions and kind of pre-made Linuxy appliances. And if you go sign up at linode.com/Lunduke, you get a $20 credit. So that's choice. That's just straight up choice right there. Because honestly, you set up a VPS, and it doesn't cost that much. It is amazing. Like, most servers, you set up a Nextcloud box, a WordPress instance, or in my case, I just use static HTML and whatnot. You don't need that much. I mean, like, really, unless you're running some sort of crazy JBossy architecture, you don't really need all that much. So you set up a VPS, and even one of the kind of lower level Linode VPSs, like the kind of the cheaper ones, are still massively beefy compared to what most people need for their online presence or their data syncing or a game server or all sorts of things. What's cool is if you do want to do something more demanding, Linode has like dedicated CPU like instances, so you can have a VPS with dedicated CPU, which means you can do like video processing and whatnot for like video chat applications and the like. So anyway, go check them out, linode.com, and then go over to lunduke.com. And the reason I send you to lunduke.com is because if you look on the right-hand side, you can see links to places you can watch or listen to this show. On the very top is LBRY, Library. Library is free and open source software. It's available for Linux, Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. I don't think anything else right now, but that's a whole lot, and it's most of everything most everyone uses. And they have a web version. If you go to beta.lbry.tv, you can use the web-based version. So then it's just like going to youtube.com. It's a good place. You can watch me. You can watch some friends of this show, like the Linux Gamer is over there, and a bunch of other nerds are starting to move over there because it's it's just a little less sensory. It's a little more open sourcey, which is great because, YouTube's pretty closed and locked down on that regard. And I don't like that. It makes me feel all yucky inside. And it's fantastic. And it's all cryptocurrency, something blockchainy, technology. It's really fancy. Going over there, check it out. I like it because it's all set up so you get the MP4 file of this show downloaded to your drive or device, and it's just right there, which means you can copy it off to a thumb drive if you want, which, by the way, I have no problem with. Go ahead and put it on a thumb drive. It's fantastic. Go for it. But that's what you get with library, whereas if on YouTube, you know what? You can go watch it on YouTube. You watch it in the YouTube app, but YouTube doesn't directly say, well, here's the DRM-free MP4. I'm going to serve it up to you in all free software. How'd you like that? And YouTube never does that to me. And, you can find other tools that'll trick YouTube and, get the little secret URLs and whatnot. But I don't know. I like library's approach. It makes me really happy. And we also have an RSS feed if you want to get the MP3 version. Listen to me inside your brain on your commute to work every morning, which is absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe DOS 6221. It's really good, though. It's really, really good.